On our world travels, we've discovered a global trend: popular distrust of establishment politicians, be they left or right. People everywhere seem to be drifting away from the main traditional political parties. Street protests in Chile, the Czech Republic, Lebanon, part of a global upheaval that some embrace but others resist as dangerous to democracy. And what's next is anybody's guess. The election of Donald Trump in 2016 was widely seen as the product of widespread disgust among Democrats, Republicans, and independents of so-called establishment politics. It's a trend far beyond the U.S. We heard expressions of distrust and disapproval of establishment politics on a recent full-measure trip surveying public opinion from Northern Ireland to Greece.
Maybe it's a distance between power and people not feeling they're being listened to.
There is two different sides, and the gap between them is growing bigger.
Here in Great Britain, as in other European countries, people we spoke to are expressing a great sense of uncertainty. But many seem to agree on one thing: Europe is in the throes of a major political sea change.
The whole front page.
Journalist Liam Halligan is a columnist for The Telegraph in the UK.
You're getting more and more ordinary voters in Europe voting for non-traditional, non-mainstream parties. And we hear a lot about some of them going right, but also a lot of them are going left as well.
That includes a rush to Europe's left-wing Green Party.
I'm actually a part of the Green Party in Germany, and I believe...
What is the Green Party in a sentence or two? What does it believe?
Strong environmental protection.
The stunning election victory saw the Greens double their vote.
In recent elections, the Greens came in third in France, won 9 out of 10 bigger cities in Germany, and took a block of 70 votes in European Parliament. There's actually no universally accepted definition of what exactly populism is. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology held a scholarly forum earlier this year to try to come up with one.
They run for the people, they run against the establishment, and as we'll hear this evening, they run for themselves, above all.
In one way or another, they suggest that they, and only they, represent what populists often refer to as the silent majority, or also very typically as the real people.
I think it's true that people feel they're not being listened to by the establishment politicians.
Malachy O'Doherty is a journalist in Northern Ireland. What is populism? How would you define that?
Populism is when large numbers of people who are not thinking clearly about their political realities, who are defying gravity, are attracted by a vision which a political leader is offering them without explaining how that vision can be fulfilled.
A politically popular vision of something.
Yes, yes.
In simple terms, many describe populism as ordinary people lashing out against the establishment swamp. In the most recent national elections in Europe, 1 in 4 votes was for a populist, according to one analyst. Populist leaders have won elected government posts in 11 European countries. And outside Europe, populists have been elected to top spots in 5 of the world's 7 biggest democracies: the U.S., Brazil, India, Mexico, and the Philippines. Eric Kaufman is a professor of politics at Birkbeck College, University of London, where he examines populist trends.
It can be left-wing, it can be right-wing, it can be religious, it can be secular nationalist. There are many different types of populism. Populism for me is just essentially about being anti-elitist and to some extent against the system. So I don't think it implies right or left.
Kaufman sees the rise of populist politicians as the people's response to rapid shifts caused by out-of-control immigration.
Essentially, we are going through very rapid demographic transformation in the West, ethnic change. Some people are fine with that, and some people find that to be unsettling. And that difference between the people who embrace and like change and those who find it unsettling is reshaping politics. My argument is essentially that's reconfiguring the politics of Western countries.
David Cowling is a political analyst at King's College, London University.
As someone who's watched political opinion as long as you have, take like a 30,000-foot level view, not just of what's happening in the United Kingdom and in Europe, but fold in what's happening in the United States.
Kick the bums out is, I think, an American expression, not one we'd use in the United Kingdom, of course. But that's very appealing. And some people say, oh, yes, but it's populism and all this. What? Yes, it's popular. Why is it popular? Don't just stand, shouting as they do, railing against it. Engage with it, understand. Don't talk to people, listen to them. And I think there's been that massive failure to do that. I mean, it's not just the UK and the United States of America. Look at what's going on in Denmark, in Sweden, in Italy, in France, in Germany. These are very turbulent times, and we lack the politicians, I think, so far, to guide us through them.
Cecilia Lonning-Skaugard is a city leader in Copenhagen, Denmark.
We've seen unprecedented growth in most of the Western countries, and suddenly people can start to see friends and families lose jobs. They see jobs moving overseas. They see other groups coming in, maybe taking some of those jobs. We see these movements on the far right, as you say, with, let's throw everyone out. Also on the far left, let's tax everyone and, let's use all the money on saving the planet, which is definitely very, it's very sympathetic, but it's also slightly unrealistic, right? And I think, overall, mainstream politicians have failed to put in place a new vision.
Some, like businessman Sean Russell, embrace the political upheaval.
I anticipate a decline of the traditional two-party model.
Why is that?
Because I don't think that there's much confidence people can have in either of those two red or blue parties any longer. They are publicly disintegrating. And it's a very, very slow, ugly process.
But many critics, like Naomi Long, insist populists are dangerous. She leads Northern Ireland's centrist Alliance Party.
I think that there's a lot of that sort of snake oil salesman kind of politics going on. And although people are charmed by it because they see that people have great charisma and they sell a great tale, I think ultimately it will leave people feeling more disenfranchised and more angry. And I think that that's a huge challenge for politicians, because when those people who promise much deliver nothing, I think people will be more angry than they were with the pace of politics that went before.
She says that applies to Brexit, the popular movement of Great Britain to exit the European Union, led by Nigel Farage, and the pro-Trump movement across the pond.
What do you make of the fact that most of the people we've talked to in Europe so far consider populism, whatever that means to them, to be something negative, Trump to be something negative?
I think there is a negative side in the sense of sort of disrupting norms of civility, and there's no question that Trump's done that Farage has done that to some extent, a lesser extent. So they're not behaving according to those norms of civilized discourse. However, on the other side, I think that these parties are bringing to the surface issues that have been neglected by the mainstream parties.
The appeal of populists may continue to elude critics and feed the trend.
How does this end?
I suppose I've studied history all my life. I suppose the argument is badly. I think it will get nastier before it gets better. How it will end will depend upon how the political class gets its act together, starts listening to people and addressing the issues that concerns them, comes down from Mount Olympus and talks to people.
A new study recently concluded that Trump's win was never based on hostility or prejudice, but his open appeal to, quote, an existing reservoir of discontent about changing American society and culture.